Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is our first virtual event, so we're excited to see how it goes. But we're excited that we're touching base with you. It's been crazy 2 months, I think, for everybody. But thank you so much for joining us. I'm a mess here, look at me. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. This event, that's my email. We had to cancel a lot of our fundraising events because of the COVID-19 crisis. So with that said, we had to find new ways to get to you, reach out to you and talk to you about what we're doing, because we haven't stopped. Just because the world stopped, just because the world is in pause, just because the government shut down and people can't go physically to work or can't have large group gatherings, that doesn't mean we stopped. SafeSpace has continued to provide their services. The 24-hour, 24/7 hotline has continuously been working, and they've been answering calls, and we've had a lot of calls, and even people that have run away from their homes, victims that have run away and come to our shelter. So we continue to work, but we do expect a big surge in calls and admissions to our programs or admission to our shelter and participation in our programs once this stay-at-home order is lifted. So that's why we're reaching out to you. We want you to understand what we do, what is domestic violence, because I don't care where in the country or in the world you are. If you're watching this and you may know somebody that is a victim of this, or maybe you don't know because you never really thought about it or think about it. I'm a board member at SafeSpace. My name is Emmelis Keaney, by the way, for those of you who don't know me. And I'm a board member at SafeSpace. We help domestic violence victims by saving them, providing safety, and then also helping them change their lives. So we're going to talk a little bit about the mission or vision of this organization, but we really want to talk about what domestic violence is. And I don't want this live broadcast to be a very sad one either. That's not the purpose of this. It's my mother, my safe space. It's Mother's Day weekend. And we want to celebrate mothers. We have amazing mothers that are associated to our organization in so many different ways. We have mothers that are staff members, that they work with victims all day long, or they work with the organization of the programs and development. They work with donors, and donors, a lot of our donors are mothers as well. We want to celebrate our victims that are becoming now survivors, that are mothers as well, that stay in the shelter, and to participate in our programs, and all that. We want to do this as celebratory of our success as an organization, our strong stance against domestic violence. So make sure that if you're sharing this live stream, whatever it is you're doing against domestic violence, helping us spread the word, make sure you use the hashtag against domestic violence. So that's how we're going to be interacting throughout this live feed, hashtag against domestic violence. And I'm excited. This is the first virtual event. Like I said, we had to cancel most of our events for the year. We don't know where we stand with the end of the year. So we really need your help. We need your financial support. So we're going to talk about what we do so that you understand why we need those funds and how are they put to use with our domestic violence participants, victims that are participants. And maybe you don't know how to identify somebody who's a victim, or you don't really talk about this. I can tell you from my experience, when I became a board member, at first, I was thinking, I have a beautiful marriage with that guy over there. I have a beautiful marriage. I've never experienced domestic violence victim myself, so I wasn't sure how I was going to be able to identify with the cause, but I knew it was needed, and they were asking me to join them. So I always took a strong position of contributing and giving back to the community. I totally and wholeheartedly believe that if you have the ability to give, especially financially, then it's not a matter of you should or you shouldn't, or you would. It's a matter of you must. If you have the ability to give, you must give. I wholeheartedly believe that. So when I joined SafeSpace, you know, with that said, I thought to myself, I don't understand domestic violence maybe as much as I should, because I don't experience it. So how can I identify? Well, it's probably because of that I'm able to, I found that the fact that I have not been a victim and I have a beautiful relationship and a beautiful love with my husband, that I should be sharing that, because I think victims need to know that their situation is not normal, that it's not okay, that it's not, they don't deserve it, and no one deserves it. And so, you know, I can advocate about love and what love really looks like. And so, with that mindset, I became an advocate of this cause and specifically this organization. But I'm not a mother either, but I do believe that I do have a mother, so I do believe that my mother is my safe space. So that is the theme of and the topic of this program. We have a great program for you. So we're going to have board of directors that are going to call in, and you're going to be hearing from them. They're going to be hearing from thank you letters that we get from our victims all the time, and even our past participants that have kind of graduated from our programs. They're going to join. They're going to talk about that as well. We're always talking about safety, so we're always going to protect the safety of our participants. But you know, we get thank you letters. It's Mother's Day, so we're going to celebrate some of the mothers associated to our organization. I'm excited about that. And we have Kyle G's. Kyle G's is going to join us too. It's a crazy Friday evening weekend for restaurants. It's a crazy weekend for restaurants, but it's also a Friday evening. So I'm assuming he's packed. He's been packed for the last couple of days that he's opened at Kyle G's Prime Seafood and Steak. So if you haven't checked it out, this is the perfect time to go check it out. But not like right this second, because right this second you're here with us. And he's going to join us, and he's going to give us a couple of ideas of what you can give to mom. But also at the same time, throughout this feed, we're going to be posting links to our website, posting links to how you can donate to us. And if you feel it in your heart and you have the ability to give anything, $5, $10, $50, $100, $300, $1,000, whatever it is that you have the ability to give, please give. We really need it. We need it for the upcoming months that are going to be so hard, and we're going to have such hefty work ahead of us in the next, especially in the next coming weeks, with as the stay-at-home order is lifted. And listen, if you're watching in any other state and there's a local domestic violence shelter or organization in your state, consider donating to them as well. They need it. We're in a really tough situation this year specifically. And if it's not for the community, we can't do what we do. We really can't. We're going to talk to Judy Brophy. She's going to talk to us about the financial side of this, but our participants sometimes don't even have the funds to pay for any of the services. Most of them don't actually. And so all our services are free for the participants, but that happens that we're able to do that because the community helps us to do that. So throughout this feed, please consider donating to us, whatever amount you're able to give. And so, yeah, I'm excited. I'm gonna try to manage this between reading some comments, trying to answer. I'm not sure how great I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna try it. And I know there's people watching, there's staff members watching, there's board of directors, board members also watching and posting at the same time. So if I can't get to it, know that they will to the best of their abilities. So stay tuned. Again, I know it's the evening, Friday evening, so I really, really do appreciate you spending this time with us. And shout out to my brother, Rafael, who is in Texas and has helped me figure out this whole technological aspect of everything for the last week. I really appreciate his patience and also his service to and commitment to SafeSpace and to making this virtual event, or I don't know, webathon fundraiser a success. So yeah, I'm looking forward to how this is all gonna work out. I'm looking forward to our guests tuning in. All right, so I want to start this feed with with this program, I want to start this program with positive news. So the best thing about SafeSpace is not just coming up with programs and fundraising ideas. That's part of what we do as board members and as helpers to, and support group to the staff. But the best thing about what we do at SafeSpace is when we get a report from our advocates or a letter from past participants or even current participants of how SafeSpace and all the programs that we have to help victims of domestic violence have helped them to take that first step of leaving their abuse environment or abusive environment to taking the step of moving on with their lives. And that is a very hard step and a process. A lot of people have no idea how to go about doing that. So I have two board members with me. I have Charmaine Hickey, who is the state treasurer for the Women's Council of Realtors. Hi, Charmaine.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us. And also, I have Captain Adam Goodner from the St. Lucie Sheriff's Office. And Captain Goodner also has a thank you letter from one of our survivors that his is very unique, so I want you to really stay tuned for it. And he's going to talk a little bit more about that. But Captain, thank you so much for your service also on our board. We really appreciate having law enforcement involved in our in all of our processes and helping our victims.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Great. So I want to hear from Charmaine. Charmaine, don't go. There you are. I want to hear from Charmaine. Charmaine, you have a really interesting letter that we have there. Of course, we have to protect the identity of our survivors. That's part of what we do, keeping them safe and helping them to change their lives. So with that said, Charmaine, whenever you're ready, you can read that letter. I'm interested.
We at SafeSpace, we know how important it is for the work that we do for our survivors. So for me, it's very personal. And when I get a letter like this to say thank you, it makes me feel good. So I just want to read this letter for you quickly. It says, "Dear SafeSpace, I want to sincerely express my gratitude and thanks to the SafeSpace organization. I cannot tell you how much your assistance has helped me. SafeSpace is a great organization. I was not sure what I was going to do or where to turn to when my situation happened, but your help and assistance enabled me to go back on track. I thank you all very much. Without your help and generosity, I have no idea where myself or my children would be. I would especially like to thank my advocates for their encouragement because it has helped me push through on days I feel like giving up. SafeSpace provides an invaluable service, and I wish the organization continued success. This for me is huge. It makes me happy when I know that we have assisted a survivor to go back out in the world and to continue to live.
I get the chills because this is why we are part of this organization. This is why every month we help serve in the committees, we help serve on the board, we help assist staff. I have to give a huge thank you to our volunteers that day to day, they help us with all our different programs. And we're gonna get into the programs that SafeSpace offers and why they're important for any organization that helps with domestic violence. We're gonna get that with Judy Brophy, who is our interim CEO, and she's gonna talk about that in a little bit when she comes on the feed as well. But the interesting thing about the letter, I don't think people realize that nobody wants to go to a shelter.
Right.
That's a very hard decision to make. And then the hardest part is moving on from there. We have people that come to our shelter and now they're safe, and then now what? And so when you don't have a program or assistance or a group of supporters that have all the foundation of how to move forward in life from the shelter, if you don't have that, it's a recipe for failure, because it's very hard for people who don't know where to start, what to do next. You know, how do they become independent from their future and continue to be safe and independent at the same time. So it's a tough.
And it's the fear of leaving and not knowing where you are going.
Correct. And what to expect. You know, we have people that come to the shelter completely empty-handed. I mean, they grab their bags and they just run away. And they come to the shelter, they don't know what to expect. And you know, we make the building, right, as comfortable as we can, but it's not fun. Nobody's looking forward to going to a shelter of any sort. So, you know, I want people to understand that that is a very hard, just as it is hard to decide I'm leaving my abuser, it's very hard to also say, you know, where am I going from here? Because I don't know anybody. What am I gonna see? What am I gonna come to? And then, you know, another thing, and and Captain Goodner is gonna read his letter now, but the interesting part about his is everybody always expects domestic violence to be related to women only. And, you know,
right.
Children are victims of domestic violence, and it's not necessarily because they're physically getting abused. That's not always the case, but being exposed to that environment in itself can be abuse. But also men can actually be victims of domestic violence. And I want Captain Goodner to talk about his survivor story that he's going to read next.
Yeah, from law enforcement's perspective, it is definitely difficult to get a survivor out of their situation. Oftentimes, the breadwinner is the one that's abusing them, and it's hard to get them to go into a shelter. Like you said, nobody wants to go to a shelter. But when we can get them to go there, we can definitely help them. This is a success story by one of our advocates that came in, and I'd like to read her story. As an outreach advocate with SafeSpace, I had the opportunity to recently work with a male survivor. He called our hotline after recognizing himself as a victim of abuse and perpetrated by his wife. He was connected to outreach. The survivor had attempted to file a restraining order, but did not include enough information in the injunction paperwork. SafeSpace was able to secure legal representation for him for the injunction, a divorce, as well as referral paperwork. And also legal assistance, immigration assistance, I'm sorry. We were able to emotionally support him through this very difficult process. This young man has had to overcome many cultural and gender biases, but with the assistance and support from SafeSpace Services, he has been able to feel safe, believed, and is moving on by changing schools, moving into a new apartment. The survivor voiced much gratitude for SafeSpace and has plans to educate himself on advocacy and his wish to come back at some point to be a voice for men and the services offered by SafeSpace.
Yeah, I think that in your case, Captain Goodner, that is a report from one of our advocates that worked with a male survivor, victim turned into survivor. You know, that I think it's reasonable or it's important for people to know that not everybody goes into our shelter. And I mentioned that before. Not everybody needs that kind of service because not everybody is necessarily unsafe as far as physical abuse from domestic violence. You know, and in most cases, what we've seen with male survivors is that they're victims of a different kind of domestic violence, from emotional abuse, verbal abuse, you know, besides the physical. And it's just as damaging to a human being as the physical one. Sometimes, in some cases, I think we can talk to psychologists and they can talk about, you know, how the differences between physical and verbal and emotional abuse. But, you know, that lingers because that affects you at your work. That affects you with your relationships with the public. And, you know, it's a community thing. And just like it affects the community from the perspective of the survivor, you know, this is domestic violence to me, it's not just a family issue, it's really a community issue. If you see indications of it, you know, as an employer, if you see something wrong, addressing it with your employees, to me, that's important. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later on when Dr. Teresa Albizu and Dr. Jack Mitchell. They come in and they're going to talk a little bit about kind of identifying some of these things. But I wanted to start the feed with a positive thing of how we've helped people, about how their gratitude for our services, so that people can recognize that it is important that we continue to provide these services, and we can't do it without the community. I mean, we need the community's help. We need funds, and without funds, we can't do this. Unfortunately, money is the necessary thing that we all have to deal with it. And so I invite you to join Charmaine, to join Captain Goodner in this in our goal of saving and changing people's lives at SafeSpace. And it takes a community to do this, and it takes funds to do this. So now it's a great time if you really feel like you want to donate and help us continue this mission. That would be a great time. I think somebody's going to put in the chat room. Somebody's going to put the link. I hope somebody does, so that I don't have to move around on my computer all the time. But it's Friday evening, so I appreciate you guys taking the time this afternoon.
But before you go, I just want to reach out to people, just so my realtor world, so that they know the primary purpose of SafeSpace is to provide safety, right? Then to empower the victim or the survivors to move forward. And as you said, we cannot do this without funds. And I need you all, everyone who is looking at this feed this evening, to remember that we need donation. So share this with your friends, donate to us, so that we can go around and help someone else. So I want you to help us at SafeSpace to help someone else.
Yeah, and it's being that it's Friday evening, this is usually like time that people go either for a dinner or a cocktail, or some people are taking, their moms out this weekend or today, or some people cannot take their moms out this weekend at all because they're still being careful about the coronavirus, which is something that has everybody. So, if you the dollars you would have spent maybe on dinner with mom this weekend, if you're not taking her out, consider donating it to us in honor of her. So let us spotlight your mom. If you want to make a donation, whatever it is, tell us about it. Tell your mom's name. We want to highlight her. We want to congratulate her this Mother's Day weekend. But consider making us this donation, because we have a lot of mothers that stay with us at SafeSpace with their children too, and that's and that's something else we're going to be talking about. That so right now, I know it's Friday night, you guys want to go to your family, so I appreciate you staying the extra couple of minutes after work. Charmaine, Captain Goodman, be safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Up next, I'm going to be playing a short video of that we have here at SafeSpace that we've populated while we're getting ready to bring in, and we're getting set up to bring in our other guests, and they can hook up their cameras and all that. So stay tuned, watch this video, and then I'll meet you in just a couple of minutes here.
Okay, be good, take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks, bye-bye.
When you think that 1 in 4 women during their lifetimes will be, have been, or are currently victims of domestic violence, it's startling. It should shake all of us. It's truly a pandemic.
All right, so that was a great video that tells you a little bit about what domestic violence is and what the impact it has on victims. All victims, not just, like I said, we talked about women being victims, we talked about the children being victims of domestic violence, even if they're not getting the physical abuse. And also men, like we had Captain Goodner that gave us that report of an advocate that dealt with a male survivor. But right now we have Judy Brophy, who joined us on the live. Judy is our interim CEO. She's been keeping the fort together during challenging times at the organization as we're going through this coronavirus and changes in general. So Judy, We appreciate you so much. The board appreciates you. The community appreciates you for keeping this together. And we want to learn about the programs that are necessary to turn a victim into a survivor. And it takes more than just safety and a shelter, even though there is a safe space, that's SafeSpace primary goal and mission. But it takes more than that, so that victims are not in a situation where they feel that they have to go back to their abuser because they can't make it on their own. So I want you to talk about what different programs we offer. I know the community knows about our shelter, but there is so much more to SafeSpace than that. So please tell us a little bit about that. Let's start with a victim realizes she's the victim. She's had enough. She wants to move forward. Where does she or he or they start?
So someone who is seeking out information about whether or not what's happening in the relationship is abusive, because as we know, abuse takes many forms. So it can be physical, it can be emotional, it can be psychological, it can be financial, and it can be sexual. And it can be often a combination of all of those things. So one of the things a victim first needs to do is just reach out. They can call us on our hotline. It's 772-288-7023. And it's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have amazing staff throughout our programs, and our hotline staff is there. And a huge part of what they do is they provide someone who's going to listen, who's going to hear what that caller has to say, who's going to strategize with that caller about what steps are available to them. They're never going to tell someone what to do, but they're always going to provide a high level of information and support so that individual survivor has a decision and has the options and has available resources as to where they might want to turn next. Many of the programs that we have are really all integrated. Our programs work hand in hand together to support really the independence of the survivor. We really focus on their resiliency. We focus a lot on the healing process. We talk about empowerment, which is really acknowledging the strength of survivors in making it through the violence, in getting out of the violence, and then surviving and thriving after the violence. So some of the programs that folks can take advantage of and are available to them, we have an incredible outreach program. We have the best outreach advocates in the state, bar none. And we are so fortunate that they are with us. We have an amazing array of shelter staff as well who are still in there doing the work 24/7 on duty. I think they often are forgotten as frontline workers, but they absolutely are. They have come to work every day. They have provided the services throughout this pandemic and will continue to do so after we all get through this together. So I think that that's important to think about our folks working in the shelter and our folks working in outreach. We also have a great program. We have an IFP, which is an injunction for a protection program. And those are 3 attorneys, 1 in each county of Indian River, Martin, and St. Lucie. And they're available to survivors who want to seek a restraining order or an injunction for protection to keep that violent person, that abusive person, away from them. Additionally, one of the things that we have available as well is going to be the work done by our economic justice advocate. Again, phenomenal work, works with survivors, because what we know and what survivors have told us is that one of the main reasons that folks stay in or return to a violent relationship is money. And we know in the world around us, money equals power, money equals opportunity, and money equals access often to resources. So what we do is we have a phenomenal economic justice program that assists survivors in really taking back control of their money, because the baseline is rooted, violence is rooted in power and control. So taking back that control of money and is really one step in taking back control of an individual's life. So our economic justice advocates works with survivors in helping them really establish a zero-based budget. We help folks with their credit and helping them access microloans to improve their credit, because we know credit is not only access to housing, it can often be access to employment. So there's tremendous work done there, and we have so many celebratory moments throughout our program, and we're so fortunate to have that program. We also have it's a very unique program based out of St. Lucie County, but available throughout the 3 counties, and it's our Invest program, and that really stands for services to folks who are at high risk for intimate partner homicide. So we really do intensive case management and support for those folks as well. The other program we have is our CPI program, which is Child Investigative Protection, and they do incredible work working to support the Department of Children and Families when there is domestic violence and child abuse happening in the home. And again, a super important part of keeping the non-offending parent with the child, keeping the children, and keeping the non-offending parent safe and healthy. So that's another one of our amazing programs. And our programs, really the gateway to access all of our services is going to be by calling that hotline, reaching out. You may not be ready to leave today at all, but today could be the day where you get that piece of information, where you can start to build that strategic plan to find your pathway forward to whatever is your best space to be safe, to be healthy, and to be well.
So I want, if there's one of the staff members watching this and has the hotline number handy, if they can put it on the chat, that'd be great, because we don't know who's watching. We have friends watching, board members, probably maybe some participants that we're keeping safe, and maybe somebody who needs to listen to this and needs to hear what it is that we do and what it is that we offer. And maybe somebody from another state that is not in Florida, but they need to hear this. And I get the chills. I keep talking about this and I get the chills because they need to hear this and they need to know, all right, so where do I start? Where can I call? What should be my mind frame? Speaking of mind frame, I know every situation is different, but what is the most common maybe hesitation that a victim has from leaving their abusers? I know monetary is a huge one, but there's got to be some mental or emotional situation going on, because when the victim has gone through this for so long, I think at a certain point, I'm not a psychologist, but I think at a certain point, this becomes kind of their norm.
So one of the things we look at is there are many factors that keep someone stuck and really trapped in many cases in an intimate partner, a violent relationship. And so one of the things we know is what's happening within the home itself. So we talked about money, but we also have to talk about the psychological forms of abuse that are happening. So the survivor is routinely told, they're not worth it, they're not going to make it, you'll never have transportation, I'll keep the children, you're never going to work. And then we have a whole nother level where we have to think about the folks who might have immigration issues or documentation issues. And so the offender is going to use that information as a tool to keep them trapped in the relationship. So every day, survivors are not only just physically assaulted, but probably more often than not, psychologically assaulted. So they're told they're worthless, they're not going to make it, they're incapable of making it. And then unfortunately, the offender brings in all of these allies, if you will, who unfortunately, sometimes inadvertently, support that thinking. And so we have to really look to bringing folks in and really acknowledging the full array that keeps folks stuck in relationships. So it's going to be the fear of leaving. What's going to happen to me when I leave? Am I going to have support? Is anybody going to help me? Fear is a huge thing. The fear of the unknown, and we're all experiencing that right now. We don't know how this outcome of this virus is going to be right now. So there's fear, and fear can be very paralyzing. And then we know that it's money. And then we know that it's emotional and psychological abuse within the home. So we really look at those elements as well. And then we know that it can be tactics of emotional blackmail. I'm going to keep the children. You're never going to get them. You don't have a car. You don't have a phone. High levels of control keep folks stuck in violent homes.
Now, I've been talking about this throughout the whole life broadcast. Nobody wants to go to a shelter of any kind.
Sure.
Whether you're a victim of domestic violence, whether you're a victim of homelessness, whatever their situation is, shelter is not a place where anybody wants to go. And even though we try to make it as pleasant as you can make, that environment, there's some challenges. And I know that we have victims that have had to leave their abusive environment and leave their children behind as well, just so that they are personally safe. And that's a very tough decision for anybody to make.
It's a tough decision to make.
And so, okay, I want to talk a little bit about money, because we talked about how money grants people access to resources. So all these services that we provide, how does the victim have to pay for it? How does it actually work for the victim? Any of them, because we have attorneys involved. Yes. That are helping, in some cases that are helping with those transitions. We have a shelter that works 24/7 and a hotline that works 24/7. And we have all these different programs. What is the victim liable financially
for? Our programs, they are completely free of charge. There are no costs involved. And I have to say to you, I know that there is this sort of made-for-TV image of what a shelter might look like and what living in one might be, but our facility is amazing. It is truly a place that acknowledges sort of the physical and the sensory and the relational environment, which can be so important. So it is a true place of healing and resiliency. It is comfortable, it is safe, and it is surprisingly attractive. We have a great space. And every day, I'm just so proud of the work that they do there. And so many of the folks, and this is what's so interesting, I think that many folks think coming to a shelter, and it is a scary and a huge step, but once folks get there, it's sort of they exhale and they relax and they're like, okay, I can do this. I can be in this space and I can really take time to look at my life and examine where I want my future to be. And for lots of the folks, you'll hear things like, this is the first time I've been able to sleep all night. I have slept all night without being woken up in the middle of the night, either being abused or being fearful of being abused. We hear this from the children all the time. We have children who do artwork, and one child did a portrait of her favorite place. And we're like, well, what is this? It was all these lines. And she said, well, that's the shelter. This is the best place I've been in a long time. And this was a small child. So for all the made-for-TV imaging of what a shelter looks like, I can assure you that our shelter is really, truly a place that has spent a lot of time thinking about and being very thoughtful about what our environment is and what does it mean to provide humane, compassionate care. And that really, that philosophy really just flows throughout our program, that our work here, and we do serve, and we serve survivors of domestic violence, and we thereby serve the community. I mean, SafeSpace is a community center. We serve folks from all walks of life, from all backgrounds, and we are so grateful that they allow us the privilege to help them, support them in their lives.
I think it's very important that what you just said about how we support people from all backgrounds, because I mean, domestic violence does not discriminate.
No.
Young people, it's older folks, it's children. I think I can't stress enough children, because I don't think people think of domestic violence and think of children. I think they automatically think of women or physical or mentally abused, and then they think of some men verbally or emotionally abused, but nobody thinks of the children that are in that environment. And so we take a lot of those children as well. I mean, sometimes I know that we've had families of 4 and 5 staying at our shelter because you have the children.
Yes. We not only serve children, and we are so fortunate, again, we have a children's advocate and a children's program. We have a wonderful partnerships throughout our community, and right on site we have therapeutic counseling available for the children and for the adult survivor as well. So we're really fortunate to be able to integrate all these pieces. Another amazing part of our work is we are in the intervention field, but we are also in the field of prevention. So what am I talking about? I am talking about the work done by our prevention advocate who works with youth, who works with young adults, and we really begin to build the social conversation about nonviolent relationships. So we really term healthy nonviolent relationships, and what does that mean? And really engaging that not just in their intimate partner relationships, but really in all of the relationships that they'll have with parents, with teachers, with the police, with folks in the community, really looking at relationship on a very large kind of continuum beyond that of intimate partner, because we really are trying to shape communities where violence and abuse in all its forms is not acceptable. So that's a huge part of the work that we do with prevention and really building the conversation with young children about nonviolent communication and what is healthy relationships. So we have a lot of exciting work that we do there as well.
Yeah, it's part of breaking that cycle so that it doesn't continue. You know, one thing that I want to, I just gotta press this button here. One thing that I want to talk about, you know, I want to get into the financial part. Of course, you know, we're a nonprofit organization, and because of the victims' access to all these programs without them needing to actually spend any of their funds that they have, you know, it takes a community to do this. And one of the things, and one of the things that I wanted to mention is, you know, we have a thrift store that operates not only to the public that wants to buy goods that have been lightly used or not used at all, but it also serves our participants as well, free of charge. So explain to me how that works, because I think people need to understand, and I'm going to read a thank you letter of how the funds and the community helps our victims directly beyond the programs. But how does the thrift store work for our participants?
Well, the thrift store, again, everything at the thrift store comes to us through the generosity of the communities we serve. So again, when I say that SafeSpace is a community agency, it truly is. It all started with a group of folks in the community many, many years ago, 40 years ago, really thinking about, you know, are there victims of domestic violence in our community and how can we support them? So this has really been a grassroots community effort. So we are so grateful. Our thrift store, of course, is an extension of that generosity of the community. In our thrift store, there's everything. And when you leave domestic violence, you often will leave in the middle, you know, it's that middle of the night thing or the middle of the day, and you're getting out with the clothes on your back. Now, that's not all victims, but it can be the case for many survivors, many victims. So what we do is through our thrift store, we are able to provide clothing, shoes, jewelry. I mean, things that we think, why do you need jewelry? Because why not, right? Because the community gives it to us, and for some folks, it makes us feel good.
And
so
it's Mother's Day, and sometimes our participants needs to feel good about themselves, and, you know, and show a good image to their children that are with them. So, you know, that's important too.
And this Mother's Day, again, through the generosity of the community, we will take items, we will get items from the thrift store, and we will translate those into presents that the children can give to their moms while they're in shelter to celebrate their moms. So it's really amazing. The other part of what our thrift store is able to do is they provide, so I said the clothing, I talked a little bit about the jewelry because Mother's Day is just around the corner. So the other thing we do, though, is we also provide furniture. So we are outfitting entire houses, sometimes entire apartments, and that's everything from the pots and the pans to the kitchen, to the bedding that folks lay their head on at night, to the dining room table that they have their meals at. So when I say to you, our community has been so good to us and continues to be good to us, and we are internally grateful for that. And our thrift store is just an extension of the community's commitment, really, through their generosity to end domestic violence.
I love it. And again, I think people forget, you can really end domestic violence or take a strong stance against domestic violence in so many ways, whether it's donating to the local organization that helps you in your community, in your state, whether it's donating through SafeSpace, whether it's going to our thrift shop and buying an item that you need anyway. So, all of those things help our victims in great ways. And I want to thank you so much, Judy. Just out of curiosity, well, I know the answer, but for the viewers, how long have you been with SafeSpace?
So I have been with the agency 37 years, so I can speak to its formation as grassroots, and that's why I always say this is a community effort, and it is the community and all of our partners and every individual, whether you can really contribute $5, $5,000, $5 million. Every gift matters to us, and every gift has an incredible impact on children, on women, and on men who are experiencing violence in the home, which for many of us right now, our homes are safe, comfortable places. And yet for victims of domestic violence, home is not safe, it's not comfortable, and it's racked with fear beyond COVID-19. So please, please think about us. We are so grateful, and keep us in your thoughts.
And we're going to talk about COVID-19 in a little bit. But Judy, before you go, I want to read this letter. This is a thank you letter that we got from one of our participants. And I just want to express through this letter the gratitude that our participants feel, even in the smallest details that the community has. So here I go. So it says, Dear SafeSpace and FCADV, let me put my glasses so I can read it better. I just wanted to let you all know how thankful I am that you all were able to provide the funds needed to fix my car. I will forever be thankful for this. It means so much to my kids and myself, knowing that we can go places safely without having to worry if my car will start or if a tire may blow out. Thank you all so much for providing this assistance to my family. Warm regards. It's stuff like this that why we wake up every day and either volunteer with the organization. In your case, you're there working hand in hand with survivors and our staff. And so thank you so much.
Thank you.
I hope you have a wonderful Mother's Day weekend, and join us on the chat room here. Well, actually, Judy doesn't have Facebook, does she?
I do not.
But anyway, the staff members are helping us, and they're putting the links to the different ways that how you can donate to our organization and take a strong stance against domestic violence. And Judy, thank you so much for staying after hours and doing this for us. And go home and have a wonderful dinner. And we're gonna stay here. I have another clip for you guys to watch while I get ready for Kyle Green from Kyle G's. He's coming, and we're gonna soften the tone a little bit, but he's actually gonna talk to us about some good wines that mom would enjoy. So watch this clip, and I'm gonna get Kyle on the stream as well. So thank you, Judy.
Thank you, and have a great day, folks.
You too, bye-bye.
I am a childhood survivor of domestic violence. I was collateral damage or casualty in the situation of my parents. I can remember, it was probably 5th or 6th grade. I got sent to my room so the parents could have a discussion. As I hid under my blankets on my bed, I could hear my mom locked in a bathroom down the hall, and heard my father breaking the door down. I heard my mom, screaming for her life, basically.